Hello everyone, and welcome to the Learn English at Home 79 podcast. I'm your host, Sarah, and today we're exploring a big topic, the death penalty in the United States. Have you ever wondered why some countries still use capital punishment?
Thanks, Sarah. I'm excited to be here. This topic is important and can help us think about justice and fairness. I hope our listeners will share their thoughts online or with friends because these discussions matter.
Let's start our story. In the U.S., the death penalty is sometimes given to people found guilty of very serious crimes. These crimes can include first-degree murder and treason. Now, let's explain that first word.
First degree means the most serious type of crime. For example, first-degree murder is planned ahead of time and is punished most harshly. It's not an accident, it's very serious.
Exactly. Another crime mentioned is treason or betraying one's country. Do you know what betray means?
To betray someone means to give secret information to their enemy. For example, betraying your country is sharing its secrets with another country to hurt it.
Let's continue. Capital punishment was brought to America by early settlers from Europe. In those days, people found guilty of murder and rape were routinely executed. Let's pause to explain routinely.
Routinely means something happens often or all the time. So, if people were routinely executed, it happened regularly, not just once in a while.
That's right. Even burglars, thieves, and counterfeiters often receive the death penalty. But what's a counterfeiter?
A counterfeiter is someone who makes fake money illegally to trick other people. For example, if you print your own dollars at home, you'd be a counterfeiter.
The death penalty was thought to be a deterrent to other criminals. Let's explain that word, deterrent.
A deterrent is something that makes people decide not to do something. For instance, if people know they could get the death penalty for a crime, they might be too afraid to commit it.
Interesting. So, the idea was to prevent crime by making punishments very serious.
Yes, but as we'll see, ideas have changed over time. Let's talk about how society started to think differently.
Over time, people began to feel that criminals were not simply evil, but victims of poverty and poor education. They thought society should focus on rehabilitation, not just punishment. Another reason was economic prisons were expensive. Early states couldn't afford to keep many criminals behind bars.
That's right. Instead of keeping people in prison, they executed them. But as America became richer, keeping prisoners in jail became a viable option. Let's explain viable.
Viable means something is possible or can work well. So, when prisons were more affordable, it became a workable choice to keep criminals in jail instead of executing them. By the mid-1800s, many states banned the death penalty except for murderers. These states were mostly in the Northeast, while southern and western states kept it for many crimes. These areas are often more politically conservative. Let's pause to define conservative.
Conservative means believing in traditional values, wanting things to stay the same or not change too quickly. In politics, conservatives usually support older laws, like the death penalty.
That helps us see why the death penalty is more common in some parts of the U.S. In states with capital punishment, death by injection is now the standard. It's considered more humane. Why do you think there's a focus on making executions less painful?
That's a good question. Even people who support the death penalty often want it to be as quick and painless as possible. It shows society's concern for human rights, even for criminals.
This is a big change from the past, when punishments were much harsher.
Exactly. Now, let's look at some modern arguments against the death penalty.
One strong argument against the death penalty is that some people sentenced to die are not actually guilty. New methods of verifying evidence, like DNA tests, have freed many death row inmates. Let's explain verify.
To verify means to check if something is true. For example, DNA testing can verify if someone was really at the crime scene.
And death row, that's where prisoners wait for execution.
Yes. Death row is a special part of prison for people who are supposed to be executed.
Because of these mistakes, some states, like Illinois, decided to abolish the death penalty. Virginia also became the first southern state to abolish it in 2021. Let's explain abolish.
Abolish means to ban or stop something completely. So, when a state abolishes the death penalty, it means no one can be executed there anymore.
That's a big step, and it's often described as the moral thing to do. Another argument is about cost. Executing a prisoner is very expensive. Anyone sentenced to die can appeal the sentence many times. Let's explain appeal.
Appeal means to ask a higher court to look at your case again. If you think the decision was wrong, you can appeal to try to change it.
One study found that these legal appeals can cost the state over $1 million per prisoner. That's a lot of money.
Yes, and that's why some people say life in prison is a better solution.
Public opinion is changing. In 2019, most Americans preferred life in prison over the death penalty. If this trend continues, more states may abolish it. Let's connect this to real life. Why do you think people's opinions change over time?
People learn new things, hear new stories, and see the mistakes of the past. Sometimes, they realize that old ways aren't always the best. It's important to think critically about justice and fairness in our own lives too.
That's a great point. Now, let's recap today's new words so everyone can practice and remember them. Here are the words we learned today. First-degree most serious type of crime. For example, first-degree murder is punished most harshly.
Betraydo give information to an enemy. He betrayed his country by sharing secrets. Routinely happens often. People were routinely punished in the past.
Counterfeiter someone who makes fake money. The police caught a counterfeiter. Deterrent something that stops someone from doing something. Laws can be a deterrent to crime.
Viable something that can work. Prison became a viable option. Conservative liking traditional ways. Conservative states kept old laws.
Verify to check if something is true. DNA can verify innocence. Death row place for people waiting for execution. He spent years on death row.
Abolishdo ban something. The state abolished the death penalty. Appealto ask a higher court to review a decision. She appealed her sentence.
Now here's a question for you. Do you think the death penalty should be used, or should life in prison be the main punishment for serious crimes? Why? Share your ideas with us online or discuss them with a friend.
We'd love to hear your opinions. Thinking and talking about topics like this is a great way to practice your English and learn about the world.
That's all for today's episode. Remember, learning English is a journey. Sometimes it's hard, but you get better every day. Keep practicing and don't be afraid to make mistakes.
Thank you for listening. Try using today's new words in your own sentences. The more you use them, the more confident you'll feel. See you next time.
And here's a final tip. Read stories or news in English and write down new words. It will help you remember them. Stay curious and keep learning. Goodbye, everyone.